Yeah.
Is it look crooked?
Yeah, but it always looks crooked to me. So, hey everybody, we're gonna go ahead and share this out to some people.
We haven't started yet. It hasn't started.
I'm gonna get some drink.
Should have named it Kickstarter Altar Quest something. But yeah, it looks crooked in the video.
Crooked which way?
Hello. I think that's fine. It was fine.
This?
It was fine before you just ruined it.
Tell me when.
Keep going. Keep going. Right there. Hey Baz. I'm gonna go ahead and share this link to the Kickstarter.
It's weird how it doesn't like give the preview like the.
You know this one is gonna be backwards, right? Like, you know, when you flip your phone.
No,
like
that's on Facebook.
Oh, YouTube doesn't do that.
Yeah. I think the glare though is worse when it's off the screen. Yeah, it's a little better.
I wish there was a faster way to share all this stuff together.
I don't know if I don't know if Scotty's in here, but I don't know if I should share on the Facebook or the.
I think
Blacklist.
Scotty is listening. He can go ahead and.
Okay, I won't share on the main Blacklist Facebook page then, or the Facebook group.
Hello, hello, Baz, Kador, Loopmaker, Tom, Jeff, Baz.
I was wondering what
Hey,
other
Scotty.
cool and unique heroes we can look forward to.
So we are going to answer questions today, but we're also in between the questions we get. We will be chatting about the modular deck system and how it's used in Altar Quest, because some people might not be familiar with it. They might not have played Street Masters or Brook City, and the Kickstarter does have information and playthrough videos, but you know, we're gonna chat about that, answer any other questions people might have about the modular deck system in general and how it applies to Altar Quest. But yeah, as bad as your question, whether cool and unique heroes can we look forward to? We have a few heroes, as you've seen in playing the stretch goals. We have more playing the stretch goals, and we have something interesting we're hoping to show this week. It all depends on assets and such, but it might be hero related. I don't know. We'll see.
Is this pointed down too much?
I don't know. You guys, is the angle
It looks
okay,
fine on the
everybody?
camera. It looks weird there, but
So
so modular deck system.
yeah. So
Can I pitch it?
I don't care.
So it's an interesting like branding, because a lot of times there's game lines, like a good example like Legendary, the Upper Deck does. They have Legendary encounters. They have Legendary deck building Marvel game. The modular deck system isn't so much as a set of mechanics that governs several games, because like for that example, the Legendary Encounters plays differently than Legendary, but it's very similar in the cards used and stuff, and some of it can cross over. With the modular deck system, though, they're not intended to have any crossover with the gameplay. The whole
Some, but
well, no, I'm talking about like the components. You can't take like the components from like Street Masters and put them into a different game. So the whole the MDS philosophy is more of a product line. It's just a product structure of deck-driven gameplay without the hassle of building decks or constructing decks or having to break apart decks and sort them out and everything like that. The MDS is designed to just breakout decks, shuffle up and play. You just get to choose different deck combinations and have like very thematic experiences. So I guess the core of the MDS is the player characters having decks of their own. That very much harkens back to like Magic the Gathering or trading card games, collectible card games. So you have a bunch of abilities represented by these cards. They play off of each other. They have synergies and everything. But these aren't decks that you have to build or construct or change. They're just pre-built, and they have the ability to differentiate from several different characters in the game. That's what we like more, because there's a lot of games that really play up the whole customizing your character aspect. We kind of prefer the whole aspect of having more characters to choose from, having characters that fit certain types. Because I remember, back in the day playing video games, I would always want to go to the character select screen and choose all these different characters who play different ways, but not necessarily customize how those characters play. So that's one of the biggest philosophies.
To Alter Quest?
Well, yeah, but just the topic in general, because you were wanting to kind of break down MDS a little bit more, but that was more just the idea behind why we started designing the MDS.
We'll have lots to follow up on that as well, but I'm going to try to intersperse answers to questions as we go. Kato asked, in the last Q&A, we said that color dice are expensive. They do add to the cost. And we'd rather do more gameplay content. We saw dice. So those were moved up in the stretch goals because of backer demand. We like to listen to what backers want, and we have a plan for stretch goals. The way we do our stretch goals is we have a lot of stretch goals planned, and since we have so many, we intersperse the big content stretch goals with like upgrades and things we can do that don't take as much development time, and we can keep the game on schedule. So we can move things around as we see backer demand, and there was definitely demand for alter dice with different colors on the sides. And I wanted that originally, but it would increase the cost for the base game. So I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll do a stretch goal. And since it was planned for a later stretch goal, we decided to move things around and move it up because people wanted it. And originally it was going to be an upgrade, but then several people voiced their opinion, said they liked the original white ink on the dice, which I think does look good. And so we didn't want to take that away from people. They liked it, so we decided to keep the base game as they were, and then these color dice are going to be Kickstarter exclusive, upgrading your stretch goal box that makes you feel special for back in the Kickstarter. Doesn't take away from your game if you don't have them, but they're cool. How much gameplay? And he follows up. How much gameplay content are we missing now? There's no gameplay content missing. The gameplay content in the stretch goals is all just extra free stuff you unlock. The base game and the base pledge is so much gameplay content that it take a while to get through all that, but it's another launch.
Yeah, geez.
Kickstarters are busy today.
I feel bad for this one.
Dog, yes. Dog is cute. She can be a handful sometimes. Canine Hero. We have one. We got Lace and Pines in the Call Lunarin expansion.
He's literally a canine.
Literally a dog.
But we have talked about it's very common in the setting for heroes to have animal companions. So
Red's down the street installing internet, I'm assuming. Hopefully, at least the weather's nice for you.
did you already do the death penalties one?
What was it? No,
Or
I
you-
might have skipped it.
I
I like
really
harsh
like-
death penalties. Are there any punishing
Well-
elements for failed scenarios in a campaign?
Well, first off, you lose the
losing.
scenario,
That's
but
pretty-
losing the scenario, it really all depends on the campaign or story. If you're playing the campaign, you're going to miss out on certain. We don't like to have the whole lose more situation where if you underperform in a scenario and you go to the next one even worse off. That's kind of we have to be careful with that. We're still kind of tweaking how that's going to work because we do want there to be repercussions, but more thematic purposes instead of just like making it that much harder. Stories, it's always different. So you might lose a scenario and you might ally might get defeated. That character might be killed for the rest of the story. And they're out of the game. So it's not like super punishing as your character, but it might be punishing for the overall story. It's always different. So there's no hard and fast rule on that yet.
The nice thing about stories is they can totally mix it up and put in the specific penalties for a hero being defeated during the quest. But you can think of being defeated as it's not death. You can think of it as being too wounded to continue, loss of morale, basically anything that can prevent you from continuing your quest is being defeated. So.
Wouldn't something like the colored dice be better as a paid add-on? Not necessarily, because that's the add-ons are tricky, and this is something that gets explained a lot, because you can never predict quantities.
Yes.
Because you have to produce those things to a certain minimum quantity, and when you put it as an add-on, as an option, that you have no way to tell who's going to be adding that on later on the pledge manager up front. So it's just.
And for example, the hero dice, those are already made. So as an add-on, that's just extra stuff that's already being produced. There's no additional molding or like setup costs or anything like that, because it's just, we're making hero dice anyway. Here's some extra.
And that's
now,
that's
the
something.
colored dice are specifically produced a specific way. When they're a stretch goal, we know the quantity, we know how much to produce, we can predict the cost. If it's an add-on, there might be like 2 people that want the colored dice. We can't just set up the production run of specifically colored dice just for like 2 runs of it or something like that. So.
Yeah, that's why you typically won't see like variant designs or like alternate sculpts or something as add-ons, because if it's not something that's already being produced for mass quantities for the game, then it's very specific. And a good example of this is a lot of previous Kickstarters, before this became common knowledge, they would offer like card sleeves, like different types of card sleeves for games. And when you give that many options, like, oh, here you can get this character, you can't know ahead of time how many of which character people are going to want those sleeves of. So you probably notice that's less common nowadays, because it's too much to deal with, and you can lose a lot of money in that, because you'll just end up making a bunch of product that you thought you might sell on the Kickstarter, but you got to sell afterwards, and it's probably not as appealing afterwards when there's actual other games to buy.
Gonna be a busy day.
Yeah, it's getting crowded. Yeah, and congrats to Chip Theory. Yeah, I was talking to Josh from Chip Theory, and they funded pretty quick. I'm happy for them. I can't wait to try that game out. I haven't got my hands on it yet. Everyone always talks about Too Many Bones and Street Masters in the same breath, and I just haven't had a chance to try it yet, so I'm excited.
Am I excited for the contrast paints? Yes, the Games Workshop or Citadel Paints has a new paint range coming out called Contrast, which is being hailed as a quick way to paint
more
armies.
expensive, or is it?
No, it's just a different kind, and you basically it's like a thicker paint, but it also goes on more like a wash. So it's like you do a base coat and a wash all at once. It's supposed to be able to paint armies faster. Looking forward to trying it. It's not going to replace my technique, the way I paint anyway, but I think it's going to add to my repertoire and give me more options. Maybe a good layer for like if I'm doing stuff like Space Marines, for example, I just slap on a huge coat of blue for a start and go from there. How much variance increase should we expect in shipping costs? The stretch goals are unlocked. So we plan stretch goals. We plan shipping with stretch goals in mind. The nice thing is our stretch goals are all going into one stretch goal box. So while the weight might fluctuate depending on how much is actually in there, we try to estimate for worst case scenario. But this campaign's not going to be like some like CMON campaigns recently that have been like tons and tons of boxes, and you're just basically adding so many more packages to your shipment. This is going to be the main box, and then the stretch goal box, and then whatever add-ons, the Arc Inspire box. Those are like the only new big boxes that you're going to have to worry about. Stretch goals will all be going into the stretch goal box. So, how long for a beefy add-on? I don't know how much I should say, but we definitely have plans for something this week, revealing. Hopefully,
Well, I mean, we can say there will be an add-on.
Okay, we are planning an add-on.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we're like we said before, we haven't really changed our course. We don't want to have too much, too much
content.
Well, not just that, but because gameplay content usually comes with more components, which ups the cost. So we want to keep the costs like as reasonable as possible for add-ons, because it can get carried away when you.
And we also want to make sure the game ships quickly.
Right.
We don't want to be caught up in development for like a year. We want to make sure that we can handle everything unlocked, design development over the summer, and make sure it's out the door as soon as possible.
Pretty pumped.
And making sure it's quality. That's the other thing, high quality.
I'm pretty pumped for the self-designed campaign aspect of the game. Are you considering feature small expansions of just quests? Yeah. So you can kind of tell from the structure of how the stretch goals have gone. They're kind of grouped together in these kind of thematic kind of packages.
Yeah, we're probably gonna call them like adventure packs or something.
So the idea being is if this was like a released game, then how would we expand it was like kind of how our stretch goals are. We would package these little like kind of box thematic expansions. Like here's the thieves, here's a new quest to play against them, and here's
A hero.
Yeah.
Here's a
and you can mix and match them with all your existing content. So that's
a feature and an altar typically.
it's kind of like we just wanted to make it feel like that kind of old school like role playing module where you get like a new chapter type thing. But the other like the Ruins of Argynspire is the other side of things where it's the big new story, new region of the world to unlock. And
Did you follow the shipping costs Bloodborne comments? We typically leave the shipping stuff to Blacklist to manage that because we like to focus on the game stuff. But I do think that the Bloodborne campaign had tons of boxes, like Alex.
they had
add-ons like
tons
that.
of add-ons. Yeah,
So like
yeah.
that is just increasing the size of the package, and
Because it's every individual SKU, like Adam said before, most of our stuff's gonna be confined into just a few boxes. We have the core box, the expansion box, the stretch goal box.
I'm gonna say I'm impressed with the content, artwork, and miniatures. My first game from you all. Well, thanks, Will. Hopefully, it's the first of many. We try hard to deliver awesome looking games, but also that play really. They're fun. They play well.
They get
they're
better.
strategic.
Yeah, our miniatures, all this stuff gets better each time we do games, so we get more control over everything. I understand you created a mountain. I understand you created why you created the mounted board. Can you explain in which way the exploration mattered more in the game? It seems that it does not matter that much which doors heroes open. So that's one thing. This came up before somebody asked this, but like I want to kind of put that back and say when does it matter? Because like I imagine if you're playing a game with a game master, let's say you're playing old school Hero Quest. There's an actual map that you're uncovering, and this person has this information. So what doors you open, it kind of matters, but you're not getting clues about which door. You're just guessing. You're just
heroes.
opening a door.
When you're playing a game as a hero, typically you're just going to go into the closest door because it's the closest door. You don't know what's anywhere.
Right.
Now that might seem strange because you don't have that pre-planned story behind a screen, but as a player you wouldn't have that anyway. So
And then on the flip side, there's games like there's full co-op games like Gloomhaven where you have a scenario and you have a door. The door opening is essentially you're just unlocking the next group.
Fight.
Yeah, the next fight. So so it's like a tactical choice. That's very similar to Alter Quest because when you open the door, you're drawing new threats. That's going to matter. So in Alter Quest, the doors you go through. You're opening up a battlefield. You're fighting these guys in a tactical battlefield, similar like Gloomhaven, but at least in this game, you have a choice about how that's like the tactical advantages of rooms. And that thematically represents you having some sort of idea about the layout of the place you are in. So you might know that there's from entering this underground area, you might know that, okay, well, we know that place was like next to a mountain, so we can't go that way. So it matters the order you open doors in because that's the cards in the quest deck, what order they come out in. But I mean, beyond that, it's just exploration. It's like open this door, see what you find. So I'd like to see on the flip side when it does matter in the whole exploration aspect, because with co-op games you're going to just explore and trial and error, just see what you find. But it's all card driven. It's all by the quest deck. The quest deck will stack it in certain ways when you need to find certain things. So I'm not really sure the best way to answer that because I don't really know exactly the framework of the question, because in my mind I don't see that it really ever truly matters how you explore unless it's some sort of weird deduction, where you have.
I think it's very meta. That's a very
yeah.
It's a meta mindset where you're like, as a player in a dungeon, like you're just going to explore and you're going to see whatever door you go through. It does matter because it matters which order the cards come out. But the quest deck can also change anything. A quest card can say the closest door is locked. You can't go to that door, so you have to go to this other door. So the quest deck the design space is almost limitless what you can do with the quests in the game. Any ideas how to speed gameplay? I know you guys are playing fast because you know the game's inside and out, but is only roadblock for busting out Street Masters in Brook City is, I'm assuming, game time. Really, just the more you play the game, the faster it goes. We do have plans to just take the modular deck system in a simpler direction in future games to bring it down to a faster game time, simpler, card play, without keeping it strategic. So I think the next game that we do in between our next two big games, like after Alter Quest, we're going to try to do a smaller version where it's like a quick playing game. We'll see how that goes and see how it's received. But we're always interested to target all different kinds of players and groups, so that's something we definitely keep in mind. Any chance for local Hoosiers to play through the game, play through as a small group? Possibly. We are taking the demo kit to Origins next weekend, so
It's not in Indiana, but
Yeah.
local, close enough.
Ohioans, Buckeyes, are they Buckeyes? Is that what they are? Can try it out.
yeah.
Anybody who goes to Origins, just stop by. Which booth is it? The
Albino Dragon.
Albino Dragon booth.
But we might, since we'll be diving really deep into development after the Kickstarter closes, because that's when we'll have kind of a roadmap about everything that we just put, finalized and everything. There's very good chances we'll be doing local playtests. There's some good local stores that always ask us to have events there, so we'll look into that also, because we do want to make sure we have enough external testers to get a feel for it and get enough feedback and everything.
Thought about a variant deck for heroes that will use the same figure. That way to keep costs down.
Yes.
Honestly,
I mean, sort of, but it's not. It's something we want to do like very.
we thought about
very-
reusing figures, but I mean, not as, like, for example, maybe hero decks of other figures. But
Not like a variant like Rowan deck. It'd be like taking a figure that already exists, like I don't know, an enemy, and making a hero deck for him. So that's possible,
But
and it's
we should
rare.
say that making a new sculpt for a hero is not that cost prohibitive. The biggest cost with making new heroes is the design, the development, the playtesting of that deck. That's the bigger cost. So, and also we want to watch out for hero bloat in the game early on. Street Masters has a lot of fighters. I'm not gonna say fighter bloat because I feel like that's part of the design of the game where you're playing these video games. Is like a big roster of fighters. But I think Alter Quest is a little different design direction where we want to make sure the heroes feel cool and unique and have a lot of character and fill a specific role in the world. But that's not to say we won't have more heroes. We have plenty of heroes planned. So
Hey, Brotatoes. I like
What's up,
it.
David?
I like it. Never get sick of it. Any plans of a quest where you lay the path you have to go through down before the quest starts?
well, there's no way. There are no plans because there is one in the base game.
Right, yeah, but also just to kind of go off of that, yes, because anything you think of like, oh, the quest could do something differently. That's all what quests are for. Every quest deck is meant to do something differently. So there's all kinds of things you can do to and plus stories. We haven't done one specifically yet, but I already have a few ideas about how to do stories that have a map laid out. You have the map going, and you have the doors that are open, and you have a path to go through. But it's just a matter of how you progress through there. It's all determined by the combination of the quest deck and the story guide. So there's a whole lot of design space there.
Eventually see a story deck based on Call Linnea and written by Isaac, or was it more of a you got a hero and a threat deck, leave me alone?
Well,
So,
we're still being open. We're still working with Isaac. We pretty much work with him on the concept, saying, "Hey, what would you like to do?" We had a conversation about it when he was here playing it. We're like,
Just sit back and forth type.
Yeah, I gave him because he was asking like, "What have you guys not done yet?" And I was like, "Well, we have a lot to explore." But one thing, since it's like very much a gothic horror game, I was telling him about the whole Lunaran aspect. We haven't really touched on this yet. He's like, "Oh, I like that." So we kind of go back and
werewolves
forth.
kind of clicked with him right away.
It's more of it comes through from conversations, not just more like, "Hey, I designed this for you," because really it's like we have to kind of provide him the framework of what we need for the game. So it's more of a, "Do you think this is cool? Let's do it this way." And it's just a collaborative process.
And when you have guest designer situations, you always want to make sure it's not too much stuff because other people have their own projects to worry about, like stuff like that. So it's more of a, hey, let's work together on something fun. Here's a little thing we want to do together, and then let him move on to his own projects.
Yeah, and that being said, that's why we didn't want to do too much with that one, because we want to make sure that he's involved in the process. And if we did a story or anything like that, like more gameplay content besides just the actual decks, then it'd be something where I'm sure he'd want to be involved enough because his name is on it. So we didn't want to put that kind of pressure on him, saying, "Hey, we want to do this also," because we can take that in the future and expand on it if we need to, but we don't want to confuse it by having us do a bunch of content for it now, where people don't know, like, which one did Isaac do?
What kind of things will we see in upgrade cards for the hero decks in the campaign? So
Wait.
each hero deck has 8 different unique cards in the deck with multiple copies of it, and the standard upgrade cards are a new upgraded version of each of those cards. So you basically make your deck more powerful, but still keep the theme of your hero. Like you still have your play style, which is very important to us. It's like the hero should have an identity. He has a play style that you can reliably use abilities. I think I saw somebody requesting like every hero card in the deck should have a separate action. I'm very strongly against that. I feel like having multiple copies is an extremely important design choice where you have reliable abilities that you can reliably draw. So it's not just a bunch of random things that you have to figure
And
out how to
also,
work with.
so you're not spending your whole game reading cards. You know what
Yeah.
a card does based on like, okay, well I have 3 copies of this one, so I know what this one does. I've seen it before, so.
But the other interesting thing about campaigns that build your character's playstyle is the equipment. So equipments are kind of like replacing tactics from Street Masters. They're always in play and they're always available to you. So the more different kinds of equipment you have determine what you do every turn. So it's like if you have a cool weapon that uses this strength or whatever, you might want to get a strength ring to make your strength even better. So your equipment loadout will help your playstyle as well as your upgrade cards. And also, story decks provide unique cards to that story, where you might find some artifact that's unique to this story, and it gives you new abilities, things like that. That's also something that's an upgrade, but it's not standard. Like it depends on the story you're playing. And so that's one thing that story decks are. We can also say like quest decks. Story decks can do anything. They can introduce allies, rivals, magic items and artifacts, effects. Like maybe you did something that you got well rested. And you found an inn and you feel good, so your next quest you get a bonus, things like that. So story decks can do so much in the game.
So are you going to get a compendium like we got for Street Masters? That's a very commonly asked question. The answer is yes, we will get a compendium. I can't say confidently it's going to be in this campaign because it's something that I want to spend a lot of time on and make it like kind of comprehensive. And this campaign is almost just scratching the surface of introducing the world. So if we did one, I think it would be kind of just a partial one, and I'd almost rather do like a full comprehensive one, which I could see being like the next campaign, because this one's already a success. So I already see the future of Ultra Quest, and I can see once we finish this first wave of content, the next big step would be expanding it and then like adding just more of the world, more of the lore. So we're still having discussions about that. It's not off the table, but ideally I think I would want it to be something that comes later on when we're not just designing a system from, right now we're still designing a system for this game while doing the lore also. I'd rather it be something where everything's set in stone, we're just expanding it through content, and then that's what we did with Street Masters. We waited till we had the game set up. We did a big comprehensive expansion, then we added the compendium, so it might be a very similar roadmap for this one.
The aspect of the quest deck that can lock the closest door is interesting. Great to hear that. I just want to be forced to turn back. So there are quests that specifically, like for example, the search is a quest in the game where you're going trying to find clues to find some special artifact. But to win the quest, you need to be on the stairs tile. So you come in the dungeon, you explore, you look for something, you got to get your way back to the exit to get out of there with your special item. So every quest is different. The drawback to giving these demo kits out to show people how the game plays is it uses one quest deck. So it's just everybody assumes that this is how the game is played. That's just how that quest is played. Every quest can turn everything on its head. There's a quest where you go and you try to rescue a prisoner and escort him to the altar and then defend him. There's just so many different things you can do with quest decks that it's hard to encapsulate in like one video, and we didn't want to give a demo kit that had just all the game content. We just couldn't afford that. I mean, it just was way too cost prohibitive.
Any plans for a big boss fight on an exploration map with a behavior deck for boss? So
Almost every counter deck is a boss
yeah,
fight.
it's because like that was brought up before, having like a big enemy, and it's like we're not opposed to that, but I think that the only downside is it takes away. I'll give you an example. There's a game that I backed on Kickstarter that had this thing where it was a very iconic game, very iconic IP, and they had these like big sculpts to represent characters in the game, like enemies. But then in the scenarios that you could use them in, they were very limited. They're very limited uses. And if we did a big figure in this game, it would be a limited use type figure, because it would just be like maybe on a certain specific board where you would fight this character and like there would be a deck driven. That'd be cool and all. And we're not opposed to doing that, but it might be something that's a bit more appropriate down the line where we can maybe make it interact more with other pieces of the game. We'd hate to just make something where it's only used in this one scenario, because the whole aspect of MDS is the whole mixing and matching all these different combinations you can do, and that would be pretty much the antithesis of that. So that's why it's not like something we're eager to do at this moment, but it's not out of the question.
I'm already all in. Just had some questions. Glad to have you all in.
So Michael said he has
with Max.
Yeah. So in Max in Street Masters, he got the errated. He's got errated. So the reprint will have his new cards. He was a little tricky to get going in this first iteration, but for the errata, it's more narrowed. His uses are more narrowed in, so they're easier to kind of unlock as you're playing. But he still is one of the more challenging fighters. But once you get him going, he is nasty. Are you going to? Hey Brady, are you going to release an atmospheric dungeon drum soundtrack? So yeah, I'll just do like the rolling drums that I
think I
have.
would hate to hear that.
It's like yeah, you can like do all these
You
sounds.
can do a bass drum atmospheric.
Yeah, it's funny because as much as I love like soundtrack music, like coming from playing in metal bands, I used to hate just very ambient stuff. Like I was always I always want anthematic like huge melodic anthems and stuff like that. So
What options to decrease difficulty? So we have a few here in this game. We always provide ways to change difficulty. So if you're playing one-offs, you can easily, if you're having a hard time on the quest, take an ally with you. You could throw a couple upgrades into your yeah, I saw that. Upgrades into your hero deck to give you a little bit of boost in your abilities. If you find the game too easy, you can throw some enemy upgrades out there to make the enemies tougher. So there's ways to mess with difficulty very easily. It's not like a huge involved process. You just throw a couple more cards in the game and there you go. The 3D doors is be hinged. They're sculpted specifically to be partway open. We didn't want to have open and closing doors. I felt like that'd be weird. I wouldn't like that myself. So
yeah, it's more noticeable to just take a door away if that door is closed. But right, like most of the time, doors just stay open. If we ever have a reason, like for a quest that we do close the doors, you would just remove the door token because that just is easier to see instead of like if it's positioned weird. I feel like you have to turn your head like, oh, is that one open? No, it's not. Just take it away and it's closed now.
Any chance of duplicate mini add-ons this time around? I want to pick up the basic altered multiple colors.
Did you skip that one? That one? 8 upgrade cards in each deck?
That one's after that.
No. Oh, I see rare. I see rare. Never mind.
So that's definitely a possibility. If people want that, I think we can make that happen. That's a pretty easy thing to do, I think. So we'll look into that. Any are the 8 upgrade cards in each deck for 1 card skill each, or are they multiple upgrade cards? So it's 1 copy of each upgrade for each type of card in the deck, and that's because personally, I have no interest in board games where you have character upgrades and you choose between 2 different versions of something. Like I just want my character to upgrade into because we don't want to have characters like specializing in different trees, like different skill trees or whatever. We just want this character to be good, has a play style, and he improves as he upgrades, and his deck improves in the way that we want it to.
Because we would rather encourage having diverse characters being played as opposed to just certain characters covering more ground. But
yeah, if we did something where this game had 4 classes, we had like cleric, warrior, rogue, wizard, and then that was all that was ever in the game. Yes, we would definitely do like skill trees and like you can specialize in different ways.
Yeah,
the way we do this, we want our characters to have an identity. They have a personality in their play style, and it just gets better as you upgrade. That's just our
I think there's certain like video games, for example, where I enjoy that kind of customization and the path choices you can do. But I always prefer not. But in board games, especially like card-driven games, I almost find it tedious because I don't want to have to separate cards into certain piles or like have my cards stored different ways. I just like the fact that like having just an enclosed deck, it's fixed deck, the upgrading is easy because you just keep those upgrades in your journal and just replace the named cards with a new copy of the upgraded version. So,
any chance of a 2-sided game board to increase the dungeon options at minimal cost? I don't think that's a minimal cost because we've discussed this before. Where if we did a double-sided game board, that is upping the cost of the base game itself. So it's a permanent cost increase to produce that base game, as opposed to if we did something with stretch goal where we unlocked an alternate board that goes in the stretch goal box. That's a one-time cost for the stretch goals, and it's a whole new board for you guys. Like it's a whole new board that won't have what I've had experiences with double-sided folding game boards where the art gets damaged on whatever side you're having face down, and the multiples unfolding and folding just doesn't seem to do well with art on both sides. That's just my experience. It's not out of the question, but we think it's much cooler to just give you a whole new board. If we hit a stretch goal where it's like, hey, here's a new board, second board in your stretch goal box, whole new environment. That's just my feeling on that.
Well, some quests involve backtracking to previously explored rooms. Yes. Involve having to manage hero movement, splitting a party. Yeah. So
that's actually a very interesting decision in the game.
Yeah, and also the splitting the party is luckily it doesn't really affect you if you're playing solo. That's more of a so like nothing in the game inherently makes you make those choices because we want to accommodate solo players who are in there by themselves. But at the same time, there's natural decisions like that because you can cover more ground if you split up. You can open more doors. You can explore more. You can all kinds of things. But at the same time, splitting the party, that means you opening more doors, and then whoever opened that door is facing one threat per player that opened that door. So it's very, you got to manage your progress. Ignore my question. Now you tell us. Hey, what's up, Mike? Solo Mode Games is here. I didn't know we had celebrities in here. Scotty Mix here. The world is huge. Another celebrity. Hey, from Kerala.
Hey, Florian. Is even corruption canonical to AlterQuest lore?
No,
it's just password.
It's
It's
funny.
inspiring work.
Yeah, originally it was going to be very similar, but the problem is the Eve of Corruption took place in this world called Athland, and it was my first fantasy world I built just for that book, and that was my first experience in building worlds, writing stories. It was my first in everything. So while that world is cool to me, it was much more of like a kind of a George R. R. Martin style world where it wasn't like there wasn't a whole lot of traditional fantasy things in there. There wasn't like different races and stuff. And I really want that in gaming. So while the whole Lorengard thing was like really fun to do and really cool, it's more of a kind of a sword and sorcery setting almost, where it's so it's like sword and sorcery mixed with like George R. R. Martin political intrigue stuff. So it didn't really inspire me much from a game design standpoint.
It's also very specific to the band because the band members were characters in the story.
And so that was actually one of the reasons why Runa became a project for us, because I wanted to make a different fantasy world that kind of suited our needs more for now that we're into gaming and everything. Thanks. Yeah, I end up wearing this Zelda shirt way too much because I like green. I like Zelda. So
any chance to see a miniature for the staircases? What's that?
I don't know how that would work. Like a staircase.
Yeah, we've discussed that before. Like that was something that we initially thought, okay, well let's maybe figure out a way to do this, but it needs to fit all four heroes in these little, four little spaces, and it's a pretty iconic piece that's used in every quest, and it needs to be functional that's where you put your heroes. And so unless we did something where it was like some tiered thing where like each hero can only go on one, to me it just didn't seem like it was worth it, because it also wouldn't have much interaction, like all the features you actually interact with, which I find to be pretty important in the game. It's kind of central to the design, where the scenery looks really cool, but you can also interact with it and it has a function in the game. The staircase literally just like calls out these four tiles, and that's four spaces that you stand on. Now, if it's something that people want, we always listen to people. We figure out ways to do it, but in my mind, I don't think of a cool way where it would look good as a staircase with four heroes being able to fit on it.
When there's not like an immediate inspiration for something aesthetic and you're trying to find reasons for it, usually we kind of take that as a sign not to worry about it, because it just means it's gonna feel kind of forced, or it just doesn't feel like it belongs. So we just never really.
Not out of the question. We'll brainstorm more, but we've heard people ask for it, so it's not like it's something that's nobody wants. But we'd have to make sure it would do it the right way. Just got home. Glad to make it. Glad to have you here, Board Game Heaven. Max is your favorite. He's a beast.
He's beastly. He's still a beast, even though we errated him. We just kind of cleaned him up and made him more understandable on the cards. But yeah, he's still awesome.
Loving this campaign, guys. All in for the add-on, whatever it is. Excited to explore the world.
Thanks, Keith.
Glad to see you back. I think I'll give Max a try. Village Attack.
Jackal. Jackal's also one of the more complex ones, and it's funny because every time I play with my daughter, who's 7, she'll always take Jackal because she just likes. It's a girl. She's got a purple deck, and I'm like, you couldn't have picked probably a more challenging character to play when you can barely read the cards yourself.
Does AlterQuest come with any kind of travel and city phases between the dungeons? And if so, yes, how do they work? Again, this is done through story decks. Story decks follow along with the story guide, which parts of the story does involve traveling, going through town, talking to people, things like that. It's not broken up into specific phases because it can change. It can work differently every time.
It's very narrative. It's heavily narrative because, like for example, the first story you're playing through, I won't spoil too much of it, but you're just going to a small town called Hawthorne. You're just interacting with people as the story it describes. You can like talk to people through the market. You can interact with somebody who's passing by.
You have choices about whether you want to go. How do you want to do? What do you want to do first today? You want to go this way, or do you want to go find the mayor?
And they have gameplay impacts. For example, if you decide to investigate something when it's getting dark, that means then you're gonna not be well rested. So next time you play a quest, you're gonna have one less starting card. So like little things like that will affect how you play the actual quests. but it's all different every time. It's not like a set structure where I know there's a lot of games that have like do a road event and then this and this is not mechanical. It's more they'll have mechanics in the actual narrative, but it's all narrative driven where you're just reading through the story and following the instructions.
How did you get Isaac Childress involved in the game? Are you guys friends? Yeah, we've known Isaac for years now. We actually met Isaac. He lives in our hometown, about an hour away from us right now. So
The easiest thing is to reference that we
I
designed.
know that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The way we met him was we were asked to come play test his prototype of a game that he was going to put on Kickstarter called Gloomhaven. So met up at our old college actually on campus, and we met up with him and play tested his game. Thought it was pretty cool. Gave him some feedback. He asked if we wanted to design a scenario for his Kickstarter. We said sure. Ever since then, we've had him over to play test basically all of our Blacklist games. He play tested Street Masters with us. He play tested Brook City. He was possibly going to do
a little teaser is if Brook City would have done a little better on Kickstarter, we would have unlocked the Isaac Childress expansion.
Yeah, we
but
were
never
planning on
got
doing a
that.
Kickstarter with him, with an expansion with him, but since we didn't get to do that, we had him come over to try Alter Quest. He really dug it, and we said, "Hey, you want to do a little, guest designer pack?" He said, "Sure." So that's how that came about. But yeah, we playtest his prototypes. He playtests ours. It's good to get other designers' feedback on our stuff. So
Hey Dorian, it's
Doing
not safe to
pretty
play with
good?
scissors. I'm not playing with them. I'm working. I was cutting out.
those are my favorite scissors too.
I was
so
cutting out stickers for dice for our next game. That's going
Lauren
to
wants to
retail.
know how we're doing today. We're doing pretty good. I'm not sure how the Kickstarter's doing because we've been in here chatting, but I think the Kickstarter's getting closer to that altered disease, which looking forward to revealing the next stretch goal. So tell your friends, let's get that stretch goal going. Will there be? Oh wait, glad you took that approach with upgrade cards. I agree. Great. Will there be an altar of sacrifice as a Slayer tribute?
There is actually.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah,
see.
there's. It's not necessarily a Slayer tribute, but
How will the game be organized? Big empty box, lots of baggies, cardboard insert with basic compartments, plastic tray insert with trays for miniatures, something else. So, anybody who backed Street Masters Aftershock will be seeing what the direction we're taking with inserts. We are being way more aware and conscious of storage, especially after Brook City, because Brook City did not turn out the way we had hoped for storage. It is big empty boxes. There are trays for all the miniatures, stuff like that, but there's no good card storage, and that's one of our most important aspects of our games is card storage. So in the original Street Masters, we had like a card well. You could at least put all your cards and dividers, but still wasn't the best storage solution. So in Aftershock, we did a storage box, but we also talked to the factory to like redesign some of the original Street Masters boxes to make the expansions thinner because we didn't want all that wasted space. But we also wanted to make better card storage and figure storage. So with Alter Quest, we're going to kind of pay even closer attention once we figure out how much is unlocked and everything, what we're looking at for the final components, and then making sure that the box is designed well enough to store things between game where it makes the most sense economically and physically. What is
did Wooden Tiger Azules fit perfectly in this game? No, negative.
No tiger faces yet.
Any idea how many heroes we can hope for? I'd say at the very least a few more. The very least.
We definitely have a few more stretch goals.
It all depends.
We've been teasing about a possible add-on. We haven't revealed what it would be yet, but we're hoping to maybe reveal that this week if everything goes well. Spiral staircase for squares, wide, keep. Yeah, but we've discussed that, but like still having the miniature stand on a spot, there basically wouldn't be stairs. It would just be like these giant blocks of flat 1-inch spaces where the heroes would stand. So it wouldn't look like stairs. That's the problem. If it's stairs, then the figure wouldn't actually stand properly. It would just fall down the stairs. But yeah, we'll keep brainstorming ways to maybe implement that.
Can you give us any hints on the add-on? Well, I can't speak for Adam, but I can't think of any good teases for it.
I think you've said enough. Have you considered reducing the number of decks to reduce fiddliness? Absolutely not.
Well,
the game is decks.
Well, yeah, but we always think of. I mean, fiddliness is so relative because one person's fiddliness in a negative context is the other person's fiddliness in a great, fun, engaging environment. So we try to find that balance because we want to make sure there's enough interactions to keep people interested and excited to try different combinations. but we also want to make sure it's not just, you're not always reading new cards and you have a good understanding about what the cards do with each other. So we do try to keep that in mind, but this game is probably going to be one of the more like complex MDS games. I think after this one we'll be kind of scaling back and going to even more simplified versions of games. So this one, if you find it fiddly, that's fair. I mean, I can't really argue against it because I mean, if you don't want those interactions, it can be fiddly. I think.
Yeah, I think fiddly comes from not enjoying something.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I could be doing something that somebody might think is extremely fiddly and so much work, but if I'm enjoying it, it doesn't feel fiddly at all because I'm actually actively engaged with doing these things. So fiddly is kind of subjective, but we do reduce unnecessary fiddliness, I guess, with Alter Quest, where we don't want to do things just for the sake of like moving tokens around and stuff like that. Like everything feels like it has a purpose, but that's just, again, that's our opinion. So when did Max lose a race for governor?
I don't know, when the city blew up. He lost some pull then.
Hey guys, any idea when Brook City will be released in Canada? We will be selling the remaining stock of Brook City when the Kickstarter fulfillment ends, which I think
They're just
is almost done.
They're finishing up Brazil or something. I think.
But
so.
yeah, once that's all done, the website will sell the remaining stock, and then we'll see what's next for that game after it's out there and we're sold out, and how how the reception is.
So how many MDS are you planning on to do? Any plans to do a big box game that is not MDS? Are you afraid? So I think it's safe to say, I mean, first off, we're doing at least like 2 or 3 more MDS style games, at least. It's kind of planned right now. Kind of our big box games are probably more prone to be like MDS games because when it comes to miniatures, we kind of vastly prefer card-driven miniature games, miniature board games. It's not like we'll always consider other options, and we'll also maybe collaborate with other designers and stuff like that. But we're very comfortable with the differences we have within the system and the product line. So,
And I honestly believe we could design 20 MDS games without them feeling separate.
yeah, without encroaching, because like I said, they're not compatible. They don't play together. So these are like totally different games inspired by because it's like, I don't know, take an example like I guess Richard Lanius is a good example of a game designer where a lot of his games you roll d6s and try to get 5s or 6s. That's kind of the driving mechanic behind a lot of it, but there's so many other things layered in there. That's just kind of the tools he uses to create these experiences. So that's why we call it more of like a product template as opposed to system, because they're just so different.
Mike says the garbage heap is a stunning likeness. It feels like you captured my essence. You're buried under there, man. 99% positive. FFG doesn't want you answering this, but any hopes for Here's a Turnoff expansion in the near future? I'm happy to be an Alter Quest backer, but
Here's the
Turnoff has
problem.
so much potential.
Even if we knew, we could not say. So
it doesn't matter if they would like us answer or not. We just can't. Like you sign a contract about when you do games with big publishers, non-disclosure, blah blah blah. You just don't talk about things that they don't announce.
Because we like to get work from them, so we like to keep them happy.
Well, we still want to work with them in the future. And again, we're more than happy to work on Heroes of Turn expansions. We have never we can reveal that we've never turned down an offer to design a Heroes of Turn expansion. So we're more than happy to do it. We don't know what they're doing, what their plans are. If we did, we couldn't say anything. So all I can say is hopefully people buy the game and like it. If the sales are good, then FFG typically expands their games. So
Michael asks, is that Pepto-Bismol? So yeah, this Kickstarter is really upsetting my stomach. No, it's my lunch. It's Slim Fast.
What was the next one? Oh yeah. So mini stretch goals to unlock. That's Scotty. How many additional add-ons do you plan? So our plan is to only. We teased this already, so I might as well say it. We have one more add-on
that we know of.
It's game
that's planned.
We have one planned add-on that is a gameplay add-on, not just like a extra stuff or component upgrade. It's actual gameplay, and we hope to reveal that this week. Saw you guys worked on. Just curious. Saw you guys worked on the Gears of War board game. Was the first and only game I played with the card equals HP system. I love it. So
that was fun because that was actually the very first game that from the start, like Corey Kineska, the designer. I think we were like one of his first playtesters because he knew that we loved co-op games. We love cards and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I played that D&D adventure game with him just to give him some ideas for like a co-op, like a simple co-op. Like, a miniatures game. Or
And I forget how much discussions we had about the whole card as health system thing. I'm not sure if that was already in there before we play tested it. But one thing we both kind of really hammered on, because I forget initially how the kind of knockdown mechanic worked, because you get killed and your buddies have to help you. And in the video game, it was very iconic where you're dragging your buddy along, you help him up and everything. So we pushed for that aspect to be in there. So that was one of the things we gave a lot of feedback on. I forget at what stage we were in the playtesting when the whole cards and HP was the thing. I think that might have been the very first.
It's a blur. I mean,
Yeah.
I've worked on so many games since then. I honestly can't remember hardly.
Yeah, I just remember the expansions were one of my first projects to do when I became. That was actually one of my first design projects, was designing the expansions for Gears of War. And it's funny looking back because I spent like almost a month on just a small deck of cards, and now I do like a deck of cards a day.
Will this game make my brain as tired as Gloomhaven when I play solo?
No. Solo is yes.
Probably not. That's in our experience, especially solo. Because solo, you're just playing one character.
I should probably say I haven't played Gloomhaven solo because I have no desire to with the stuff you manage in that game. But with this game, I play all of our MBS games solo, and it feels natural. It doesn't really feel brain burny.
Are the stretch goals progressing to be funded as you had hoped? It's hard to plan anything for Kickstarter these days. You never know how it's going to go.
We try to plan aggressively optimistic just in case, but
we were extremely pleased with how fast the game funded and how positive it's been going. Like, there hasn't been a lot of complaints or like people not happy with the Kickstarter. I personally expected it to be funding even more because it's in my mind it's like, oh my god, this is a game I've been waiting for my whole life. But again, it's my opinion. So I know people have there's Kickstarter fatigue, there's competition, there's lots of things, there's lots of factors going on about why people back games and why they don't. I can tell you that we have a whole lot of people following the campaign, and I expect the last 48 hours to be pretty big, but it's hard to tell on Kickstarter. I have no idea.
on Kickstarter, the comments, someone said, "Whenever I see the Sadlers, I always think of Mac and Charlie from Always Sunny." Don't tell them I said that.
Well,
which one's Charlie?
I always see myself as Dennis, but okay.
Which one's Charlie? Because I guess like Mac got fat when he ate like all his chimichanga, so it could be me, I guess. But like I don't look like Mac that much. I don't know. You look more like Mac. I think.
I act like Dennis. I think.
I'm curious now because Charlie is a compliment because Charlie is hilarious, but I'm just not that little.
Might have answered this earlier about how you plan to mitigate for costs related to tariffs and new tariffs.
Yeah, we answered this earlier because our boss, who does all the back end stuff and all the production and working with factories, kind of reassured us because our position in the industry right now is going to be like less affected than some of the bigger publishers who have all those distribution channels to go through.
Yeah, mainly because tariffs are going to hit people who import big shipments of games from straight into their warehouse or whatever. We're going through multiple fulfillment
Smaller
companies,
channels essentially.
And it's
like
not going to be hitting us as hard.
Yeah,
so.
if we were doing multiple lines with multiple publishers and partners, it'd throw a wrench in our gears. Obviously, the most it would do for us, it sounds like, is if anything, it's going to drive up the shipping costs. Just like not like drastically, but it just costs the U.S. shipping costs would be a little up, but those could be advertised in advance as opposed to just being a surprise hit.
If you were locked away forever in a room with a video game console and only one game, which console and which game would that be? That's a really impossible question.
Wait, where are you?
It's after I went. There's a bunch of comments but no questions. I just skipped down to the next question.
I see it. Dorian's question. That's easy for me, man. Well, at least recently, because the Nintendo Switch, they have the Inti Creates made Blaster Master Zero and Blaster Master Zero 2. I'm not sure which one of those, but I could probably replay either of those over and over again. I mean, beyond games like Skyrim, where you actually have a whole world to kind of just.
Well, I was gonna say, like, if it was something where I was stuck forever, I might pick something like World of Warcraft, where there's just an insane amount of content. I could at least just fart around on.
But yeah, I've been replaying those old platformers on Nintendo Switch in a while. So I think Switch is probably my console of choice. I mentioned Lanius. He's a great designer. Oh, were you done with that one?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So Lanius.
Yeah, Lanius is. We're actually doing a game with him. I'm not sure when it's gonna be announced, like when it's gonna be revealed, but it should be like maybe later this year or early next year.
Well, someone mentioned it on a
Marty
Twitter.
Cannell.
Yeah, so people have seen it before. It's like basically it's like a superhero version of his Defenders of the Realm setting. So we collaborated with him on that to do like a superhero version of it, which was really cool. going through some contract stuff, figuring out what they're going to do with it, but look for it in the future.
RoboCop character for Brook City win. I mean, Ann, what was her name? God, I forgot her name now.
The redhead?
Yeah, it's Annie
Meryl.
from what's that?
Meryl?
Was it Meryl?
Meryl Jones?
Yeah, I think it was Meryl. Yeah, Meryl. She had the shotgun. Yeah, she's the partner from RoboCop.
Yeah, because
I mean, I don't.
It was
we,
Moira Banks and
yeah,
Meryl Jones.
because we don't do literal. Like if we're gonna do a RoboCop reference, we're gonna have RoboCop in there. It's gonna be somebody, a side character.
Your
So.
band Lorngard's still active. We still play weekly board games or RPGs with one of the guitar players, Dave. He's actually one of our playtesters.
Yeah. So
so we haven't played since like
the band consisted
6
of
years?
us, 2 guitarists, a keyboardist, and a singer. The singer was kind of he was the youngest member in the band because he came in to replace our former singer. So
singers are hard to find.
Yeah, singers aren't they're not easy to, especially with this genre of music, because it's got to be very well vocal trained, operatic vocals. So our singer Rob, he was from a band called Winterfell, and he was from Pennsylvania. He moved here for a while to kind of help with the to kind of perform with the band. Didn't stay very long. He moved back to Pennsylvania, started a family and everything. So now it's just me and Adam here in the Indianapolis area. Our 2 guitarists are still local. Our keyboardist, who's a brilliant, insane musician. He's got a PhD in like medical physics or something, medical engineering. He moved away. I haven't talked to him in a while.
I think
so
he
I'm not
moved
sure
to
he's up
California. And
Yeah, I forget.
he's
I'll
doing
have to,
there.
I'll have to check in with him. He's a really cool guy. But yeah, so now it's just me, Adam, and the guitar players. And one of our guitar players hangs out with us a lot. The other guitar player is always busy doing his own video game stuff. He makes arcade games now. So we don't get to hang out as much as we'd like. But we keep telling ourselves someday we'll get back to it when our kids get a little older, maybe.
It's hard to devote free time to playing music for fun when we have things like we can do things to make extra money, like design games, freelance, stuff like that, where we can be productive and save for our kids' college, things like that.
What would stop you from releasing the extra add-on this week?
Assets.
Yeah,
we
assets.
we can't release an add-on to say, hey, buy this unless we have something to show.
Yeah, we want to show what the thing is, as opposed to just telling you, hey, here's a
And
question.
spoiler alert, it's sculpts. We want to make sure we have the sculpts to show, and so the sculptor is working furiously. We've seen some of the things he's done. It looks fantastic, but we need to finish up to show you guys what we're offering. The lack of villain and Isaac's expansion been discussed. It's not every threat deck will have a villain tied to it.
Because they're separate,
by default. But that's not to say that a villain might not show up in the stretch goals.
I will just say there is a villain that's tied to that, but yeah.
Yeah,
right.
it was something we designed to go with it. We didn't, like I said, it's a guest designer expansion. We try to make it so it's a reasonable amount of work that a guest designer would want to do just to help out. So we're not going to dump a bunch of stuff on them. And also cost. Like we can only do so much to fit as like in the 109 pledge level. So that's basically we crammed it full of stuff, and maybe there's more than stretch goals. So
Is now the time for the tale of the first 4 heroes?
Not quite.
I could give a synopsis, but it's probably better to maybe prepare, let it stew a little bit, and they're very iconic. I mean, they're mentioned in the update, so what you know about them already is probably the most important aspect to know right now.
Concerned about replay value. Right off the bat, don't be. Besides lurkers, is there anything that changes gameplay? Can we expect more villains? So every single time you play a quest, it's different. Like every time you play a quest, it doesn't matter what order you draw the quest cards, because they'll come out in different orders, but they'll also have different features coming out in different orders. So you have this quest card attached to this feature this time, but it's this one this time. The quest will always play out differently.
You're always building a different dungeon.
Yeah,
no matter if you're playing the same combination of decks, it's always gonna be a different dungeon.
You pick the direction you explore. You can start anywhere you want. Like it's every time you play, it can be totally different. So the replay value in our games should be the last thing on your mind. Like we make games for replay value. Like we make games to be as replayable as possible and engaging and fun. Like for example, I think the biggest complaint for Street Masters, the biggest complaint people have is there's too much stuff they'll never play through it all.
Yeah.
So it's just I feel like that's one thing you can cross off your list of concerns for our games. We can't stress that enough. We design games. The modular deck system is all about replayability.
So the second part of that was, can you expect more villains and or expansions? Yeah, always. I mean, we design our games to be fully expandable, and we have a lot of content to add. It's just a matter of what we can produce, because we're still a young company. We're still relying on backers and just word of mouth to kind of get our campaigns more traction, because we don't have a lot of capital to go off of besides our Kickstarter funding. So
In Alter Quest, will there be any point in getting extra copies of miniatures, more frocks, for example? No, not really. Unless you want to just paint more, there's no reason to get extras.
yeah, the cards.
We do, so every miniature has a card associated with it, so there's never going to be like one card representing 5 different frocks. There's like, this guy has this card assigned to him. so that there's only need for that miniature.
So Michael asks, has someone tried playing Four Heroes solo? We do have playtesters who do that. What was that like? If someone has, I would never do it.
Yeah, I personally would never do it. I'd never recommend it. I don't feel like there's any reason to. There
the
is
reason-
a reason to play solo 2 heroes because you want that. You might want to see that combination of the hero synergy and things like that. And it's not that overwhelming. Like you've seen Mike from One Stop Co-op Shop. He did that. I still wouldn't do it if I'm playing solo. I want to go ahead and take advantage of the fact that I can just play one hero.
Yeah,
and
the philosophy behind our games with the player decks is like we want to give the solo, the one player, just enough choices and enough cool, interesting tactics and stuff through these cards where you don't have to run multiple characters to get those interactions. You can if you want, like Adam said, if you want that collaboration of these heroes supporting each other. But the whole point of these decks is to make it feel like you have a lot of options and there's all the strategic stuff you can do with just your one character. So.
You can answer the novel one.
And so I was toying with that like before, like we started this really heavy planning for the Kickstarter earlier this year when we came on full time, and I was fully planning on doing like a novella add-on, but I'm still not opposed to it. I just don't want to take away from our attention to the game because there's gonna be so much story in the story decks, the stories of the game, that I kind of want to make sure those are more fleshed out. And again, like the compendium thing, we might just do something where I could release a novel or something, or put the novella idea in the compendium as like a chapter of it or something, and just have kind of a all-inclusive book, you know. But yeah, there's a lot of notes I have laid out already, laying out the first novel, and it was going to be a standalone novel, not like a series, because I want to have like episodic novels of the history of the world.
I would really like to hear which hero did you enjoy the most and why in Alter Quest. Well, I think it's a spoiler that the 2 heroes in the demo kit were our favorites.
Yeah,
I think
not a
that's
surprise.
Yeah, but I really dig Cedrin. I designed him to be my ideal character. I like playing healers in games, support characters, but also capable of every hero in the game has to solo, so they have to be capable of taking care of things in the game, but they just specialize in different things. Cedrin is a badass cleric who can smite enemies and keep his buddies alive. That's my kind of play style.
I really. Oh, yeah. Do you want
You're gonna say Rowan?
Yeah, Rowan. Yeah, Rowan's. Do you want the Alter Quest setting to be dead serious like Game of Thrones, or is that more funny? So, like, I think I've said before, my favorite book series is A Song of Ice and Fire. I love George R. R. Martin's writing. I love the whole, great houses and like knights and stuff like that. But from a creative side, I just never work. I would never like be motivated to create that kind of stuff. I don't feel like I need to emulate that. But I do like to emulate kind of like fantasy tropes, like standard fantasy things. So that's what kind of where I take like a little piece of, Martin's philosophy with like the darker stuff and like kind of the more gritty things. But also I like to inject just the typical fantasy tropes. I don't use comedy a ton. It's more like subtle stuff, like with dialogue. There's like silly things that they're supposed to make it lighthearted and charming, so it's not just all grim and depressing. But it's not also from a story standpoint. It's not about like shock value or like your main character dies right away, is that kind of stuff. So it's not that tone. So it's kind of, I think it's somewhere in the middle probably.
One more question. I've planned a lot of stretch goals. Are you going to pack them in expansions if you don't reach it? So Brady mentioned this earlier, but the way the stretch goals are planned, as you can see, there's things slotted in between these, but overall it's kind of like these adventure packs that we had planned for expansions in the future. And the reason they're stretch goals is because the Kickstarter is doing so well, we can do them early. But for example, like that whole outlaw theme things, like the outlaw threat deck, the Van Geyser hero, the pillaging the vault quest, the crates feature, the altar of greed, all that stuff is like a nice thematic pack that we would plan on doing stretch like for expansions in the future. So that's kind of our plan. And any stretch goals that we don't hit, we can definitely be planning to those expansions in the future. But anything that we unlock as stretch goals is going to be all packaged together. There's a nice stretch goal box. And that's not to say if we only unlock certain things, it's like you're missing stuff. All the stretch goals are going to be playable as they're unlocked. There's nothing you're going to be missing, but anything you unlock is just more stuff you can use.
Will there be any non-humanoid enemies? We have the gargoyle. Gargoyles are out there. There's
it's not out of the question, but we do like humanoid enemies. Like we feel like we like the idea of different things to do. Like you can talk to enemies, you can talk your way to situations, you can scare them, you can mess with them. That, you know, they have tactics and strategies themselves. We always are drawn to those kind of enemies. We like to,
Yeah, and I think it's also just because of our tastes. Like, I mean, when we go to the dungeon crawl, it's like I don't care about fighting a giant, like, you know, an actual little rat or a spider. It's like I'm always more interested in like the actual humanoids and, you know, like the creepy goblins or the big Fimirs, lizardmen and stuff like that. So it's just more of a taste thing. We're not opposed to it, but it's just like we happen to naturally design these creatures like that. What resources Leeson uses to turn the
so
to
he's-
werewolf? Oh my gosh!
he triggers that off of the altar dice, obviously. So, like, you know, for example, he pulls a shadow, and I can switch to a wolf. We're playing around with the idea of him losing all his focus when he switches to a wolf because he's like losing control.
It's like an
But
investment too.
his stats are better, and his cards will have different effects for like if he's in elf form or werewolf form.
Lots of that stuff abstracts to focus because focus represents so much of what your character does, and you can generate it easily. So it's a natural thing to make focus mean different things for each hero. But also, and we'll save this for like a more, you know, a direct tease when we have more assets to show. But like his character deck, for example, has cards that tie to his forms, like what form he is in. So he'll, you know, he's got a bow, so he might be really good at range attacks when he's, you know, in his normal form. But that card will do something different when he's in his wolf form, and vice versa. So different cards will have different weaknesses and strengths based on what form he's in.
What, a superhero edition of Defender of the Realm? Take my money. Yeah.
Gladly.
Hopefully next year. I'm not sure when they're gonna announce it, but
Yeah,
we'll
you'll
see.
definitely hear from us because we'll be promoting that for sure.
Mitch says he played all 4 heroes solo and he won't do it again.
I can't blame you. Yeah, Mitch is one of our main playtesters. So yeah, he's the guy I probably mentioned before that played it, and I have no desire to do that. So thanks, Mitch.
When we're gonna see more background for Myrene, that might be an update.
Yeah, we could do Marine next. I mean, I could spoil it now, but I might as well just do the write up so you can have more time to digest
Yeah.
everything. But
Plus we have a lot of questions.
She's pretty cool.
She's a vampire.
Yeah, she's not a thrall though. Most, like a lot of the vampires you come across nowadays in Eridika are thralls. They're bloodthirsty, devoted to the old ways, but she is not a thrall.
There's a lot of video game IP tabletop games recently: Metal Gear Solid, Skyrim, Devil May Cry. Are we going to expect any surprise from you in the near future? Yeah, probably.
Yes, absolutely.
Appreciate all the info. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Mara. I plan to paint the Altar Quest minis, but have minimal experience. Will there be enough full color art in the box to use as a painted guide? There will be.
I think the divider.
All the card art is.
Well, the dividers will have the
Yeah, the dividers.
because the cards might have some text boxes covering certain things, but the dividers should have the art.
Do you still plan to play games, not as designers? So-
Yeah, we.
Oh, do
so
you still play games?
I'm still I'm still an obsessive gamer. Like if I'm not working on a game or doing something else, like, you know, either related to fantasy or books or something, I'm pretty much always playing a game, like just solo game, playing a game with my daughter. Like I play games like almost every day, so I still.
And we have weekly game night too. So
Yeah.
I mean, we sometimes abuse them with playtesting our stuff, but most of the time we're just playing other games.
Yeah, but I will admit, like being a designer, it takes away certain enjoyments because I'm in games that have way too much setup or teardown. Because I just want to get a game, put it to the table, play it. So that's one of the things I value a lot is like very easy setup, very easy storage, you know, stuff like that. So, so most of the games I play are things that I'm either really familiar with and I play frequently, or they're just easy to get going. So.
Can you describe a threat deck in a little more detail? If there are 4 minis, does that mean there are only 4 enemy cards? So there are 12 minions in a threat deck. There's 3 different types, and there's 4 of each of those types. So for example, in the Frocks, you have Raiders, Mudslingers, and Bogmancers, and there's 4 copies of each of those, one of each color. There's also traps and events. Now, that's not, I mean, we try to be consistent with our deck formulas because we like to design specific ways and people can like get used to understanding how these decks function and what to expect. That's not to say they can't change, but by default, a threat deck's going to consist of 12 minions, 3 types, traps and events. That's how threat decks are basically set up. And each time you enter a room, you draw these threats, and so you know what kind of threats you're facing in this quest. But the lurkers can be anything, like anything in your collection can come out as a lurker.
So, do you see Sedrin as a paladin type, or is there a chance
No.
for a paladin?
So-
for your information, Cedrin's not a paladin.
Yeah, so Cedrin is more of a traditional cleric priest character. That being said, yes, we do have plans.
There is
we
room,
do have plans for a
There
paladin.
is room for a paladin.
We do have a paladin plan. Hopefully we can show it to you soon. Hopefully we'll unlock it. You gotta tell your friends if you want your paladin. Let's get there.
Two players running two characters each seems reasonable. Yeah, it's totally preference. I mean, it's up to you if you want that, but it's not needed because
But
the game scales just fine without
I
it. So-
honestly like the game is phenomenal two-player. Like it's
Yeah.
one thing.
It's-
One thing
it's-
that we always found lacking as gamers ourselves is like lacking good co-op games played just two-player. Like that you can just play two characters. It just not that many out there that you can do that with.
Yeah, and it's a preference thing, but I almost prefer almost all of our games two player, just because I feel like
It is.
the
I feel like it
interactions-
is. Go on.
I just feel like the interactions are like almost perfect for that, and like the time length, and just like, I don't know, just the lack of good two player adventure games out there. I think we're trying to fill that void as much as we can. So
I feel like it is almost to the detriment sometimes where we focus too much on this. Like this is a perfect two-player game, but it might play a little longer than we'd like four-player because the game is so good solo and two-player that the higher player counts might be a little too long for some
But it's
people.
it's kind of a natural thing with card driven games because like there's some of the popular ones like Arkham Horror LCG. It's all card driven. That naturally plays two player. Two core sets you can play four player, and it gets played four player a lot. But if you play four player, it just adds a lot of length because all the card interactions and stuff. So
Is the Alter Quest game board double-sided? No, we've mentioned this quite a bit. It's not right now. It's been asked before. It's not out of the question. We would definitely prefer to offer a full alternate board in stretch goals, like to put in the stretch goal box. Like here's a whole new board you can play with. Also, because we have like the neoprene mat for the board, so if it was a double-sided game board, you'd have to have two to cover the base game in addition to anything else we unlocked. So it's like, I also just don't like double-sided folding boards. I would like a folding board to have one side. The back side is always the durable material that's you're not gonna worry about getting scuffed up or anything like that. That's just my preference. We're always listening though. If there's just a high demand for double-sided boards, we will definitely consider it and look into it more. But that's just how I feel.
what does bulks carry in?
Who does
Oh
sculpting
no,
for your
who does
miniatures?
sculpting for your miniatures?
Our sculptor is right now. It's
There's a fact. There's someone that
there
associated
is a
with
studio,
factory.
but there's one sculptor working on Alter Quest. There's one sculptor working on the figures. There's a different sculptor that works on the features. Because they just have different styles. The guy who does the features is more good at the 3D, structures and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I don't have names off the top of my head. But they're both really good.
Yeah, and like I don't know if it's the case for this one, but a lot of times with a lot of these artists or creative types, the names won't get shared that often because there's agreements because of scheduling and stuff. So some people don't want to use names because their schedules might not allow to take on more work, so they don't want to have.
But
the
we don't
requests.
know that. We just
I'm just saying that's why it's probably more common to not have a lot of names out there for those because there's a lot of exclusivity going on with artists and sculptors.
We honestly just stay out of it. Typically, we're just like the Blacklist shows us sculpts. We give them our feedback. Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, we just do the creative aspect. We just do the creative direction. What does Bulks carry in the crate on his back? He's a raider. The frocks live off of raiding other people's stuff, so he's just there to carry a bunch of goods in his
Sometimes
backpack,
maybe
so.
other frocks.
Yeah,
riding on
'cause-
back, shooting people to
Yeah.
muck.
Have you played Deep? King Brad did play Deep Six D6. Not for me, but it's neat. It's a cute little game. I don't know if I'll break it out much anymore, but it's cool.
Does the lurker card minions differ from their threat versions? Yes, because threat cards use threat tokens specific ways. So when, like for example, the frocks, they spit, their threat tokens are like poison and they apply poison to you. The frocks minion lurkers do not do that because they have to be separate from the threat tokens. So they function very similarly but slightly differently. So we do things that replicate what they do without using threat tokens. So they are different, but thematically they fit with what type of enemy they are, if that makes sense. I've asked again, but I'll ask again. Overview cards of the complexity ratings. I truly believe they're necessary for your games. We've talked about this, and we're not against it. Obviously, we thought it works really well for Street Masters. I don't feel like if people have played Brook City, I don't know if they felt like the cops had that drastically different complexity ratings. I feel like they're kind of similar in complexity. That's just my thought. I know in Alter Quest they are. Like right now, the heroes we were designing do not fluctuate that much in complexity.
And honestly, what we want to do going forward is like for the base game, we want these heroes to be pretty straightforward to leave room so when expansions come in, those heroes might be a little more complex, but those expansions are assuming you know how to play the game, so you're familiar enough with the game to know these are like advanced heroes, and usually because when you bring in those different complexities, it usually means you add a lot of weaknesses. So the heroes in the core game are designed to be pretty well balanced. So they're all play pretty well solo. They all have their own they have strengths and weaknesses, but they all kind of complement each other, even if they're not in the game together. So if we have an expansion bringing a character who might be super weak in certain situations, he's going to be harder to play, but maybe more fulfilling for your play style. So personally, I like overview cards because I like to pull out some randomizers and just deal out some randomizers. Here, I'll play this character. I'll play this stage. That was my idea for the Street Masters expansion. So I'm all for it. So if I can convince these guys, great. But
No, nobody's against it. It's really just fitting into the
costs and
everything else involved in the game. But we are going to have on the dividers. They're going to be kind of like Brook City, where there's going to be some overview text on the back of those dividers to tell you more about how that deck works.
Any chance to play a demo of our Ultra Quest at Gen Con? Yeah, we should have our 2-player demo kit there.
At Gen Con, yeah, for sure, we'll have the demo. I don't think we'll have any kind of pre-production sample like that. But
Probably still be finishing all the files up.
how much does it take to play an average one-off session? It depends on two big factors of how familiar you are with the game.
3 big factors. If
how many players?
If you've read the decks and stuff.
That's kind of why I will lump that in there. How familiar you are with the game / decks you're using, and how many players are in the game, and also I guess how much you guys chit chat about strategy. Because the thing is, these games can stretch out when everybody's talking about everything they're doing on their turn, and there can be a lot of discussion about planning your turn and stuff like that. So it's hard to tell from group to group. But we usually play individual quests within an hour, 2-player, I think, normally. Sometimes an hour and a half, maybe, depending on if we're taking notes. And playtesting's hard because it's hard to get a judge of time when you're doing things like, let's hold off and talk about this deck. Is this working how we want? Do we want to change anything? Okay, go on. So, but usually within an hour and a half.
So, will there be any kind of timer associated with gameplay? A gripe I personally have with Journeys in the Middle of Earth is a threat mechanic. I feel like it stifles exploration. So, my theory is, this is more than a theory. It's kind of just a fact that, like all co-op games, you have to have some sort of timer built in, because if you let players linger or do whatever they want, there's no
challenge.
There's no challenge. But you gotta have that kind of pressure to move forward, to progress. So there is a timer. It's not necessarily like the threat mechanic in Journeys Middle Earth, which I understand you're gripe, because if I'm playing Journeys, I feel like I'm kind of like pushed to explore, and I might miss a few corners. But that's the whole point of the game, because if you explored everything, then there's no game. You're just it's more like reading a book. You're just learning things. But having to have those choices and tough decisions is what makes the game. So I understand the frustration, but I think you have to accept that's part of what the game is like the game is built around that pressure.
But what we don't have is we don't have a timer that just ends the game. Like, the timer in Ultra Quest is the pressure from the villain of the quest objective. Then the threats escalate and it gets even harder. You're still, the loss condition is a hero being defeated, but the pressure is just making it so that's more likely to happen the longer you take. So there's no built-in time where it's like, oh, the game's over.
Right. It's not like a time track where you have this many turns. It's more about, well, this quest says if there's 10 tokens on this card, we're gonna lose. So we better hurry up and get to this next room and knock a token off of this. So there are different timers, but that's a necessity for a good cooperative game, because you have to have some sort of pressure pushing you forward.
Have you thought about an add-on or clip on board to be able to change the base board? No, because honestly, we've played this game like hundreds of times, and never, ever, ever have we thought we wish the board looked different. Like, it just never happens.
Yeah, I fully expected it to. Like, I was with everybody else with those questions. Well, I fully expected when we had this thing printed out, because Adam had the first board mocked up, and I was all on board with a fixed board. But seeing it, I was like, how can we change this up enough? But every time we've played it, it's like that becomes less and less and less even of a thought in your mind, because it just the game functions around that. It kind of builds itself around that whole aspect. So
also, anybody who has any kind of dungeon tiles in their collection can play Ultra Quest with them. I mean, it's just the game is designed to be played with all kinds of maps. So the possibilities there. I'm not saying it's out of the question. It's not something we desire, but we're definitely listening to backers' desires, and we're implementing things. The encounter boards, for example, were something we thought of that might address that concern, where it's like, okay, people want to play on different environments. Well, bam, let's do encounters, because there you go, you can play these encounters that are quicker playing games in different settings, and it gives that that quick skirmish feel. But we also have plans for maybe different boards for the quest deck, the quest board as well. But we feel like that iconic base game map is pretty important, and we never get sick of it ourselves. So I've been interested in trying Street Masters, but I'm not really into the theme. You're not alone. That's something we've heard before. Will Alter Quest give the same kind of feeling? What are the big differences?
So let me answer this, because I personally don't think Street Master, or I don't think Alter Quest is going to give you the same feeling as Street Masters, because Street Masters is very much built around, you have a character, you're trying to get your tactics out and maintain them while you kind of maintain your momentum while you take on a boss, and it's that push and pull. Alter Quest is much more of an adventure, and there's different things you can do outside of combat. That being said, the game we have in the works that's not Alter Quest, the next game, is going to be much more appealing to probably fans of Street Masters that might not like the theme. But Street Masters is very much its own thing. We don't try to replicate that. There's just something about the visceral nature of just the martial arts and the beat 'em up aspect that works very well with how the tactics cards work. But at the same time, the product model still gives you the same feel, where the decision making can be very similar, and the different combinations you can make, that's very much, it's just the gameplay itself. The experience of Street Masters, I feel, is different enough, and that's like kind of our philosophy. We want to make sure the games are different enough where there's reasons to maybe explore both. You don't have to, but
And I will also say, don't let the theme turn you away from Street Masters, because
there's so much there. There's so much beyond just like karate.
I will be the first to admit that if I saw Street Masters on the shelf at a game store, I would not be tempted to pick it up. Because I grew up with these beat 'em up games like Final Fight and Double Dragon. I don't necessarily get that vibe from the cover of the Street Masters core box. It looks more like Tekken, Street Fighter, those kind of games, like the one-on-one fighting games, which I played a lot, but I would not be excited about playing a tabletop version of a one-on-one fighting game. So I would not pick it up off the bat. But the game itself is way more than that. Like, it feels, you can go watch so many reviews of people that like might not be into the theme or whatever, that just love the gameplay. I'm not saying you don't feel the theme, because you do, but it's just so much more than you would expect. It's not just like a karate martial arts game or whatever. It's a very engaging, cooperative, tactical experience, and I highly suggest anybody to check it out, regardless of if they like the theme or not.
Yeah, I honestly feel like I've heard from more people that they didn't like the theme, but they love the game, so they end up liking they're fans of the game despite the theme. I hear that more often than not, because we do appeal to people who like that theme. Naturally, they're drawn to it, and the gameplay captures them, which is great. But people who can look past the theme and play the game and still love it, that almost means more to me, because the game it's kind of rises above of the inspiration that it takes from those old classic beat 'em up games. But it's very much more of a puzzler and more of like just a kind of a modern fantasy brawling game. So.
The Great Campaign, any mock-ups we'll get at the storage solution? Probably not, because we don't actually get to start designing that until we're in production.
And we have all of the components laid out, everything we need to produce.
So you'll definitely see it in updates after the Kickstarter ends, but I don't think we'll have anything to show during the campaign. I will say we're paying very close attention to it this time. So, will the doors in Alter Quest be used as features? No, those are not features. They're just their own little thing. Neat. Was just curious about the design. Would it work on a hex-based system if we have probably would require quite a bit of house rules hexes.
Oh, for general gameplay?
Like, yeah, it would be a little more of a conversion in house rules. I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't say go play a hex game.
Mostly. I mean, I have a hex here for a prototype we're working on, but hexes are problematic in a lot of ways because of just having the adjacency problem. Because with square grids, you can make walls easier. Walls are so annoying on hexes because
They're just asking if they could play it, not why we didn't pick hexes.
I know. I'm saying if you played it, because you think about trying to make the rooms on hexes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The walls don't really translate.
Would not recommend it at all. Yeah. Seriously recommend playing Street Masters. It's an amazing modular game, and the fighter decks are a blast to play with. Thanks, Travis. Well, I agree with you, obviously. Any plans for little painting guides? Probably not, mainly because it just takes so much time to put those together, and I don't want to spend my time doing that because I have so much other stuff to design. But if we had more resources at Blacklist, we would definitely suggest somebody to do that, but not anytime soon, I can say.
Games are excellent, going all in. Thanks, True Gamer. Fix the text on the cards. We've addressed this. I'm not sure if you're True Gamer, if you're familiar with popular card games like Arkham Horror, the LCG, or Lord of the Rings. These main card games, because Artex, I think Artex was like the same size or bigger,
Same
right?
point. So it's
It's
standard.
It's standard card sized font. We understand that even though even standard might be too small for some people, but we have to accommodate cards that have a lot of text, so it's kind of a tricky balance. But
We're definitely paying attention to that
Yeah.
from feedback. So our graphic designers are gonna maybe bump it up a little bit, but we still have to make sure that we can show off cool art, and the card frames aren't just like all text. From a couple of playthroughs online, it seems like Alter Quest goes open door, spawn X creatures, kill X creatures. Is there? Yeah, there's way more variety than that.
So
You're
again,
seeing-
to harp back on to what you said before, you're watching a couple playthroughs of the same quest,
quest.
of that one quest,
and
that
we
one
included the
combination.
what we thought to be the most straightforward quest in the demo kit to give people an idea how like the main function of the game plays. But you have to understand that the cards you're drawing determine what can go on when you reveal a room. So it's yes, what you're seeing is the standard core rules of the game is when
It's you're
you
seeing the
reveal a room.
functionality. This is the functionality, not necessarily the experience of playing all these games, because every quest is going to feel different. Every quest is going to be designed differently, and then if you're playing, different combinations of threat decks and villain decks, they're all going to interact differently too. So it's all depends on the combination of cards. Now, what you're reducing it to is opening doors, smacking enemies. That's very much part of this gameplay. It's part of the genre.
Yeah.
It's part of dungeon crawling in general.
I mean, people
so,
could
yes,
say that.
that's part of it, but
People could basically say that about games like Gloomhaven, which is like one of the most popular ones out there right now, which like is literally just
yeah, that one literally, and this is not a criticism. It's because people love it. Literally, it's just a combat simulator. It's literally going in there and you're just doing combat. In this game, in Alter Quest, we designed it with six characteristics, six attributes. And those can be all different things, like talking to people, searching rooms, doing all kinds of different activities outside of just combat. So,
But yes, it's a dungeon crawl, so it is going to be open doors, find things in there that you need to kill to get to your objective. Like that's part of the game, but it's not going to be the same every time.
yeah, and when you use the word variety, I'm not sure if you're looking for variety in different functions you're doing in the game, because yes, you're rolling dice, yes, you're playing cards, you're reading cards, you're revealing cards. That is a recipe, that's a framework of the game. But as far as variety goes, there's going to be a ton of variety in this game. There's like every different deck you combine is so much more variety. So
Really enjoying the classic look of this game board in particular. Hope you will be leaving the token components as is not turning to plastic. If you mean like the playing tokens, then yeah, those will still be cardboard. But like we might have, for example, we've had like the prisoner token that's used in the rescue quest. One of the stretch goals is upgrading that to a plastic figure, which I was super excited about myself, because I just thought it's awesome just to have like this cool, unique miniature that you use in this quest. And I put out. Just so you know, Alter Quest miniatures will be a little bigger. They're going to be more heroic and a little chunkier than our previous game, because they're like kind of heroic scale. We want to make sure the detail really comes out.
So there are a couple comments here about the crit symbol and the dice. I want to reiterate that I understand the people's confusion from seeing an image, and they personally, I'll just say I don't find them problematic when I'm playing. I've never seen a problem determining the difference between a crit and a regular hit. That being said, we're always talking with the factory, see what's possible. That we have these dice are mass produced, so they're already done. The molds are done. If we wanted to make a change, we have to eat the cost. So it's a tough decision to make.
I've just never rolled these right here. I've never rolled those, and even
it's hard to see with the light there.
I've never even considered those like even being the same when I've rolled them. So it always just stands out to me when I see a critical. But that's going to be our fault. We'll take the hit on that one, because we told the graphic designer, like those look good. Let's do those for the demo kit, and we made the dice because we wanted the demo kit to have as final components as we could, and that includes the dice. Like we don't want to lose a bunch of money making new molds, because molds are expensive. But it's not to say we won't explore the options, because we want to make sure people are happy with their game. I'm personally happy with these dice. If I got these in a game, I wouldn't think twice about it, because I just look at the symbol and that's what it means. It stands out to me, but that's just me. But yeah, we'll look into that and see if there's any options about it. We just need to make sure that we can afford it, and that is, again, it's going to be something that's like, okay, well, if we do that, that might cut into more stretch goals we wanted to hit or something. I don't know. So we'll have to see. Love Rado's playthrough, was already buying it, and that solidified it. Awesome, yeah. We were glad Rado said yes because we know he's not a big fan of rolling dice. So it was a huge risk for us to be like, okay, well, let's see if Rado likes that.
Yeah, rolling and resolving.
Yeah, well, he just doesn't like rolling dice. Like he gets dice fatigue, he says. So, which is understandable. Everybody has their own tastes. But the nice thing is he really enjoyed certain aspects of it. So it's awesome. I was really happy to see what he liked out of it.
Thanks, Lex Luthor.
This game would be great with playing with my 8-year-old son. You can start quickly and have great art and minis. Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing this with my daughter. It's a little older. She's just now getting into Dungeons and Dragons, so maybe she'll play some Ultra Quest someday. Compared to Brook City, is this where we're at here? How much differences are there between quests and villains? I would say a lot. Every quest has their own deck, functions differently. The objectives are always different. Every villain has their own deck. They have an activate that they do every turn to like mess with you, but they also draw villain cards, and they all have a different theme. For example, Bulks is really bad at like messing with your supplies and slowing you down. Gert, the pig boss lady, she's really good at beefing up her minions with armor tokens, and she's a good battle general. She inspires minions that work for her. So they all function differently, and they feel different when you're playing, which is cool. What's the charisma?
You guys got to be careful. We're gonna get passed up by too many bones. We need some more funding, guys.
What's the charisma test needed to tame a Frox?
Frox?
That depends on the Frox. They're not really.
Yeah, is the Frox wounded or?
Why is the Queen Valerie token used for on her quest?
So,
she is part of this.
Yeah, I won't spoil too much there, but we did talk about the intro of the story out of Luxon, the first story in the base game. The Queen sends you out from Middenvale, which is the kind of the capital of Fiveholds. She sends you out on a kind of a mission to go meet with her former traveling companion, Morse Bolton, who's the mayor of Hawthorne, and she's having you do some tasks for her. She may or may not make an appearance in the story, and if she were to, she would have a token to represent her when she comes traveling with you. But now she's gonna have a miniature. So,
is there an integrated campaign just a collection of one-shot scenarios? So the nice thing about Alter Quest is all the content in the game, aside from story decks, can be played as an individual quest. You don't have to worry about like, oh, this is a level 6 quest or whatever. Everything can be played as a one-shot adventure with your buddies, and have a game night, come over, show your friends the game, see if they like it. But there's also 2 campaign modes. There's campaigns, which are linking together any quests you want and upgrading your character as you go. And then there's also stories. And stories are a more specific, structured narrative, like choose your own adventure style game where you play through a story guide and it tells you the quest decks or threats you use for every quest. But yes, those are built into the game, so you can play either way you want. Trying to appease as many people as we can with that. The crit, you can do that. We'll look into any options to make the crit stand out more if it's a big concern with lots of people. Any hope of having the model's bases textured like the traps are? That's tough because it's such a preference thing. We can look into that, but like I said, we have the factory using standard bases, so they have to make a textured base standard. The features are made a little differently because they're using a different sculptor for those, and they're also going to be Kickstarter exclusive. The trap sculpts are. So we'll look into it, but it's such a preference thing. Like for me, for example, I wouldn't want that on my miniatures. I prefer regular bases because I prefer to base them myself however I want. But yeah, it's something we can look into if there's a high demand for it. Checking in, just say hi, thanks for the good luck. Do the stories link to each other or are they standalone? So each story deck is a standalone story. We wanted to make sure Brady and I have a philosophy when it comes to campaign games. While we aren't as big of fans as campaign games as we used to be when we were younger and had more time to play through more campaigns, even though we never finished them.
I borderline hate campaigns.
Our philosophy now is we'd much rather have shorter campaigns that people finish and then do another, like, more campaigns as opposed to just longer campaigns.
Yeah, this is the compromise because, like I said, I'm not too shy about saying I don't like campaigns. They're not what I look for in games. that being said, it's something that we're trying to meet in the middle because we know that people see fantasy and they see this type of game, they expect a campaign. We're offering that, but it's something where we want to do it how we would want it. So we try to keep games within our vision, but with this particular aspect, we're very much catering to what the masses would want out of this. So we're doing a campaign, but it's going to be our type of campaign where there are a fixed number of quests linked together, and they'll tell a narrative. And the campaign rules themselves will be kind of flexible for you to make your own campaigns, but the stories will be very, very structured from the story guide. So.
What is the highest stretch goal? Is it giving me anxiety? I think we won't get there. So we plan our stretch goals around what we expect the campaign will do, even though it's hard to plan for.
We'll never hit all the stretch goals that we were gonna plan for. So we always plan that far ahead. I don't think we'll see.
Well, I think in this one it is likely we might hit all of the stretch goals we planned because.
Well, I'm talking about like just idealistically, like what we would hit, you know. So.
But, I will say, like I mentioned before, we do have a lot of followers on this campaign. The Kickstarter shows you that now. Shows you how many people are hit the follow button to be reminded when the 48 hours comes up. So there's a lot of people on that list. I'm not sure how many people will back, but the more stretch goals we have unlocked, the more tempting it will be for them, obviously. So we could very well have a huge last couple days. We'll see. But again, anything we don't hit, it's not like it'll never see the light of day. Like we will do it someday. Whether it's another Kickstarter or just an expansion in retail, we will make it happen. We plan these things because we want to make them. So.
Very much looking forward to this. My close friends love deck builders, card drafting, so this would work really well. If I had a bigger room, I'd have gotten Brook City also. Yeah, Brook City's that's a big one. Keep up the good work, thank you.
Will you make other games located in Aritica as well? Yeah, we.
Well, maybe not Aritica, but in the world Runa. Like I have a lot. Well, I think there's one other game idea. We had a smaller game that would be in Aritica, but we want to use Runa as like our kind of iconic fantasy setting for any games we do with Blacklist. So yeah, it's 1:30 though, so I gotta wrap up this next game we're doing. So we should probably close it out there. We caught up on all the questions.
Yep, I think I don't know if we covered everything about the modular deck system. We gave people a good idea. Yep, thanks for stopping by, Florian.
Yeah, thanks, Florian. Yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap there because we finally caught up on the questions. So before more pour in, if anything else out there, we'll just save them for next week. But yeah, I think we covered the main topic today at the very beginning of this thing, like an hour ago, about the modular deck system and what's cool about it. What's not cool about it? Nothing. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. I assume everyone's already checking out AltarQuest. If not, go do so.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends about it.
You know, like we're gonna be at Origins next weekend, so we'll hopefully get the word out to some new potential backers. But I think we've tapped out social media. We've been marketing as much as we could. We're a small company, so we only have so much of a reach, but we want to unlock as many stretch goals for you guys as we can. So hopefully the campaign continues to grow, and the last 48 hours will be pretty monumental. We'll see. So thank you guys.